Here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts. Ever wonder what bridges the gap between your favorite film genres, subgenres, and movements? CinemaScope is here to explore these connections, taking you on a thrilling odyssey through the ever-evolving art of cinema. I'm your host, Andy Nelson, and in each episode, we embark on a deep dive into the forces that sculpt the world of film. From the styles you know and love, like heist films or the French New Wave, to the ones you may not be as familiar with, like Turkish Yeşilçam or Brazilian Nordwesterns, my expert guests and I unravel the complex tapestry of storytelling, style, and innovation that defines the world of film as we unpack the myriad catalysts of change that shape these diverse styles. Whether you're a student of film, a creative professional, or simply a devoted movie enthusiast, CinemaScope is your gateway to a richer, more immersive film experience. Don't just watch movies, understand them, appreciate them, and revel in their artistry with CinemaScope. Subscribe today. Welcome to Movies We Like, part of the True Story FM Entertainment Podcast Network. I'm Andy Nelson, and that over there is Pete Wright.
That's right, it is.
On today's episode, we have invited director John Patton Ford to talk about Jacques Audiard's The Beat That My Heart Skipped, a movie he likes. John, welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
It's a thrill to have you. We chatted with you, I think, 10 years ago when you had your script first on the Blacklist.
Yeah.
Over on our show, The Next Reel. We chatted with you briefly because we were covering, on that show, we were covering the Alec Guinness film, Kind Hearts and Cornets.
Oh, yeah.
And so we talked about you and your script. I think you've changed the name.
It was called Rothschild at that time. At
the time, you were saying you were getting calls from people because I think Mike Nichols' people had wanted to do a remake of Kind Hearts and Cornets. I think that you had said that the Rothschild family had actually contacted you in concern that your script was named that.
Well, you guys are going to love this. So I completely forgot that's what we were talking about 10 years ago. There was a long and storied, shall I say, legal situation that lasted for years. And
with the Rothschild family?
I can't tell you. This is a stupid thing. It sounds like I'm making it up. So it was part of the settlement that I can't publicly speak about.
Oh, no. So, all right.
But I will say that. I will say this. That podcast that I did 10 years ago, let's just say that played into the legal situation. They found the recording. And it was part of your voices, and my voice was played back to me in like a deposition.
Oh my God. I gotta say, if it was in a negative context, John, I'm sorry. But Andy, I feel like you and I have just arrived.
Is that what it is?
It was, I can tell you, it was not in a negative light, and it actually ended up helping things. So,
oh, good.
I have only a positive Pavlovian response to hearing your voices.
Oh my God, John, that is crazy.
Wow. It's crazy how things work. And, because I was going to ask you with this conversation, we're going to talk about Audiard's fantastic film here in a little bit, but first we want to talk about you and your career and how things have gone since that initial conversation we had with you on The Next Reel about your script being on the Blacklist. And it's at the time you're just like, well, I'm trying to find these different directors. I don't want to direct this at all. And here you are, things have changed over the last 10 years. You write and direct your first feature film, Emily the Criminal, which is a fantastic film. In a year of fantastic films, it's like one of my favorite films of the year. And then now you're actually in the process. You've just finished production of this film based on your script.
Yeah, I did. I just shot it over the past couple of months in South Africa, of all places. We shot South Africa for like New York and New Jersey, which I don't really recommend doing, actually. But we did it.
Wow.
And it's God, that was 10 years ago. It's been a long journey,
Yeah.
And making that first movie put me in a position where I could make something much bigger and more elaborate. And we just happen to have the right interest from the right people. And it happened.
Wow.
Definitely happened. Right now I'm about to start editing the movie. I'm about to start post. So it's like 208 scenes. It's a lot.
And what's the title of it now?
actually don't have a title right now. It was shot under the working title Huntington, but that will not be the final title. So this thing is going to have multiple titles. I can't quite tell you what it's going to be called when it's all said and done. But, you know, it's stars Glenn Powell and Margaret Qualley and Ed Harris. Cool people.
Do you know, I was going to ask, you know, like you've been working on this film with Glenn Powell while he became kind of the Hollywood it guy.
Yeah.
Right? Like it seems like just like maybe 6 weeks ago, he was just a good looking guy. And now he's everywhere. And you had him.
Yeah. Yeah. Similar, in a way, a similar story to Aubrey Plaza, I guess, in a scaled down, slightly different sense. We nabbed Aubrey before she did White Lotus. And then Netflix put the movie on their platform like the day that White Lotus was over. It was
goodness.
A lot of people working behind the scenes to time things in a very specific way that would benefit viewership. But with Glenn, you know, Hollywood's weird, man. Like you get around these people, you get around agents, you start to kind of wield the power of a major agency and you begin to figure out that they kind of know what's going on. Like they know what stocks to invest in that are going to pop off in like 16 months. It's like investing in futures, you know?
Yeah. Right.
And although Glenn is becoming a thing now, they knew what was going to happen a year ago. So I started, you know, I think I met Glenn in October of last year. We started talking. He was at this inflection point where he already knew what movies were going to have his name on it this year. And he was looking to kind of diversify and have a slightly different 2025. This is at the end of 2023. So there's a lot of engineering and planning going on. It wasn't completely random, although I do say that we benefited from how well Hitman did and how well Twisters is doing. Those things could have gone anyway. So.
And also just that type of star too. I mean, he's somebody who had been around working with Linkletter for quite a while, and so already kind of had those indie roots. It wasn't just like trying to just be the star right out of the gate. And so I think it probably benefited you that he wanted to keep trying to do things that weren't just, I mean, nothing. I mean, I loved Twisters, but, you know, just something else that's not necessarily all the big blockbusters, you know?
I think so. You know, he's just a big fan. He loves working. He loves making movies. He wants to do a lot of stuff. He's a very smart guy with very sophisticated taste. Even though he chose my movie. So he's got a lot of stuff he wants to do. He's a good guy. Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your journey from getting that script on the blacklist and everything to finally getting Emily the Criminal off the ground. Like, I mean, it still took a number of years Emily the Criminal came out in 2022.
Yeah.
So there was still like an 8-year period from getting on the blacklist to finally getting that, you know, in front of people's eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, that's a long conversation. I don't know how much you guys want to hear, but this is a struggle. Like,
yeah.
Just to put this into some context, I now specifically remember doing that podcast with you guys. It took me a minute, but I'm like, oh yes, I even remember where I was. I was in my parked car at work. I don't think I shared that with you guys. It was at night, and I was doing this kind of like Uber Eats before Uber Eats. There's this company called LA Bite that I think got bought by something else. And I was on the job. I was sitting there doing the podcast, hoping that I wouldn't get a call to go pick up some lasagna or something.
Oh my God. That makes everything so much sweeter.
So that's what I was up to at that time. And then what happened is that script I wrote Rothschild down this thing called a blacklist, which sounds like a bad thing, but is in fact a good thing. It's just a list of people's favorite unproduced movies from the year. That led to a lot of meetings. Those meetings led to getting a screenwriting job, which allowed me to not do podcasts from my parked car at work. And that led to another writing job and another writing job. This kind of sounds like, oh, I'm doing great. But in actuality, like, these weren't great jobs. They didn't pay that much. And working as a screenwriter is really tough. You don't quite know when the money is going to come in, and you're not totally in control of the pay schedules. So I was just sort of hanging in there.
And it's writing jobs. And I mean, in Hollywood, a lot of times that means you're writing, you're part of a process, but you're not necessarily even getting credit on these things, right? I mean, that's a lot of writers end up kind of in that world where all they do is come in and do touch-ups and clean up other scripts or take a pass on something. And then it maybe goes into someone else's hands and you might never get credit for any of that.
Yeah, it's really true. I think that it's led to like writers being treated a certain way. Kind of being treated as just like
Fungible.
Yeah, like if this one doesn't work out, we'll just drop and get another one. Like the value of the movie is never predicated upon the status of the writer. However, directors are quite different. I, as a writer, came to know so many directors. I began to work with them. I was sitting across the table from them in meetings. I was watching the way other executives responded to them. And I could see very quickly, it's just way better. Like you're a piece of the puzzle that they really need. They really need a director there to kind of brand the things and to attract actors, right? The reason things get financed is because of an actor who's signed on board, but you're only going to get an actor if there's a director that actor wants to work with. So you're essentially a piece of bait for a studio. And no writer is a piece of bait, except for like 3 of them, maybe. So I was like, man, that's, rather be on the other side of the table.
Yeah, yeah.
So I wrote Emily the Criminal to make myself, and, was just lucky enough to get it going.
Well, and getting it going is, there's a lot that goes into that, especially when you've come into the industry as just a writer. So how did you start selling yourself as not just somebody who can direct something, but like, I've written this also, and I want you to fund it for me?
Here's how it went. And I'll be as clear as possible, because if there's anyone who's still listening to this podcast right now with this rando guy, they probably want to be a filmmaker and would really benefit from hearing this in a specific, like non-glib kind of way. So let me just lay it out for people. When I got when I was in film school, I made a short film. It was 15 minutes long. It was called Patrol. And it went really well. It went about as well as you could hope a film school movie could go. Like, it's a piece of shit and it's totally embarrassing. But in terms of student films, you can't ask for much more. It went to like Sundance, and all these people saw it. And then I got an agent and a manager in Sundance. It's like the greatest thing in the world. This is the dream, right? I was like 26. And then approximately nothing happened for years. There was years of me trying to like hang in there and pay off my student loans and writing and just trying to do it. But like nothing was, it was just impossible. And so by the time that I finally began to work as a writer, and by the time I finally endeavored to try to do Emily the Criminal, I had an old movie to show people, Like by that point, it was like 8 years old or something, but I'd still made it, and it had still gone to some reputable festivals. It had still gone to Sundance. And I remember, Aubrey Plaza getting my feature script. And I remember at some point in the conversation, she goes, "Did you make a short film that went to Sundance?" And I said, "Yeah." And that was it. I don't think she ever saw it. She just needed to know, like, is this guy an asshole? Oh, no? Okay, cool. You know what I mean? Like, she needed to know that there was something there reputable enough where she could go and defend the decision to be in my movie to her agents and her managers.
Interesting.
So that's kind of how it happened. Plus, I had the kind of personal faith. Like, I knew if I could get in there, I think I can deliver because I've done it before. So that was worth everything.
As the not speaking as the director, but as the writer, you're sitting there with Aubrey and you're looking at figuring out how to get her connected to the material. Do you remember what it was? Do you remember what she connected to in the script? I'm curious how what that calculus is like, right? First, that you're not an asshole. You had a thing that went to Sundance, but also what is it about the words you put on the page that she was able to resonate with? And was it the line, "You want to tell me what to do? Put me on the payroll"?
Actually, yeah, I think she was a big fan of that moment. I think that's one of the first things.
It's a good moment, man. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember now, because I first met her in the summer of 2018. It would have been like 6 years ago. Yeah. So we had known each other for a couple of years before we made the film. First off, let's talk about like how you get a script in your hands. How did she get a hold of that script? Did it come from CAA? Did it come from Courtney Kibowitz, her manager? No. When agents send you stuff, you might just stay in your inbox indefinitely. You're probably like, that's some shit they want me to do so they can make money. But like that script that she got, Emily the Criminal, that came from a friend of hers. It came from a very well-known producer and editor who himself has won like 2 Academy Awards. And he sent it to her like, "Hey, I read this and I think you might be great for it." And she opened it and read it immediately because it came from that guy. She's like, "Oh, well, if he likes it, it must be all right." And so just having someone to vouch and kind of grandfather you in was a major thing. But then on top of that, I think it was just the kind of thing she never gets offered. It was very kind of pointed and very blunt and very gritty and a thriller. She's done mostly comedy. So we both had overlapping, like, I don't know, if our endeavors, if our desires were like on a graph, we would both have this mildly overlapping area. Like, I need to make a movie really badly, and she needed to show people that she could do more as an actor.
That she's more than Parks and Rec.
Yeah. So that's sort of what happened.
Wow.
That's outstanding.
Quite a ride. I mean, it's a fantastic film. Certainly, everybody should check it out if you haven't seen it yet. Let's use this opportunity to shift our focus and start talking about this film that you picked, The Beat That My Heart Skipped, directed by Jacques Audiard.
Yeah, man.
Coming into this film, I'd seen a few of Audiard's films. I hadn't seen this one before, but I'd seen A Prophet. I'd seen Rust and Bone. A director that makes tough, gritty films that I really enjoy. And I know I had heard of this film. And certainly, I mean, Pete and I talked about the Spanish Apartment trilogy. So we were familiar with the actor Romain Duris from those films. But I hadn't seen this, and I didn't know what it was about. And I also haven't seen Fingers, which it's based on. But coming into this, I was really surprised by just how fresh it felt and how, I don't know, there's just this sense to this story that it was about trying to figure out who you are, really, you know? And so I guess just let's start with, I mean, how did you come to this film? And do you remember your initial impressions of it?
I think it was like 2006, forever ago. 18 years ago. Was that 18 years? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just really starting to kind of get into filmmaking. I was starting to make little short films, like, for real, you know, not just talking about it, but actually going and doing it. I think I was 23, and I was living in Charleston, South Carolina, which is close to where I'm from, you know, living in this little ratty apartment with like 5 other people. I just started watching a lot of movies, you know? I was like shooting short films and watching a lot of movies. I was kind of having my own little film school before I actually legitimately went to film school. And it was in the years when Netflix was first starting out. And to compete with Netflix, there was Blockbuster Online, which no longer exists, obviously. But like the way it worked is that like you'd sign up for Blockbuster Online, and then you could get 2 DVDs in the mail. And then when you were done watching these, you could then take them into an actual brick and mortar Blockbuster. Remember those? And trade those DVDs in for 2 more DVDs. So basically, you could pay like this really small fee, which I think might have been like $7 a month or something, and get like unlimited movies. You could just get in this infinity loop of movies. It was very silly. You could kind of tell, like,
Yeah,
I don't think
right.
this. I don't
That's
think this.
funny. I
business
wonder where
model
they are
is,
now, right?
Yeah, like, I didn't major in economics.
Yeah.
I think this is going to work out. So anyway, I started watching a ton of, and it was this kind of magical time where like I had some shitty job. I didn't have a lot of like responsibilities, you know, we were just goofing around. I was playing in a band. It's great. And I used to just go to Blockbuster and just like walk around Blockbuster. Can you imagine? With absolutely no like agenda. I would just go to the foreign film section and be like, that looks good. I'll watch that today, and just rent it and go home and watch it. Like I would do that all the time. And it's just incredible. So anyway,
Those were the days.
Those were the days. And it was funny because in my mind, like the Blockbuster foreign film section contained every foreign film. It's kind of funny to think about. I remember being like, here are all the foreign films. Wow, look at them all.
Right.
Everything
everything
has ever done outside of America.
There's a whole aisle. Anyway, I had clocked the cover to the Beat That My Heart Skipped a couple times. For anyone wondering, it's got one of the greatest one sheets ever. Like the original DVD release of it has the sickest looking cover I've ever seen. And I've ever seen it and be like, that looks sick. Got to get that at some point. And then when I was done watching fucking whatever Army of Shadows, I was like, all right, let's try that. And I rented this. I took it home. I remember sitting there in my ratty apartment on King Street, downtown Charleston. It's like 1 million degrees outside with 100% humidity. And watching this movie, I remember it starts and I'm just like, I was confused. I was like, oh, did this start in the middle? And I like went back to the menu and like, no, this is the beginning. Like, okay. So I'm like watching and like, man, this movie really doesn't give a shit about the audience, does it? Like, it's just going and it doesn't care if you understand or not. And it was like 10 minutes later, I was like, wow, this is really like, I can't believe someone wrote this and made it. Just seems like it's all really happening. Like the level of verisimilitude is like mind boggling. And then it slowly starts to become this, before you know it, you realize you're being told a story. It kind of sneaks up on you. And then I was just like, I remember there's this part in the middle of it with the central character I was like hypnotized by now. And there's this part in the middle where the central character is practicing piano in his apartment, gets frustrated and leaves. And then he just goes for a walk and we follow him on a walk. And I was like, this is the greatest movie I've seen ever. Like, I'm so in right now. What is going to happen? Like, it just did not seem tethered to any kind of like, did someone write that? It just feels so unwritten and yet compelling at the same time. And then we get to the ending, the last like 7 minutes of the movie. I'm like, that's the best ending I've seen ever. I cannot believe that. I can't believe that ending. The moment you figure out what's going on, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And the way it goes into the ending, I was completely floored. Now, I think a lot of movies we love because they're objectively great, you know?
Mm-hmm.
This one, I think it has just as much to do with that moment in time in which I discovered it as it does with the actual objective quality. But, you know, most people are much bigger fans of Rust and Bone or A Prophet, you know? This is seen as a lesser Audiard movie. It's one that people don't even really talk about much anymore.
It's one that's hard to find.
Yeah.
It's really hard to find. You can actually watch it on YouTube in French, by the way, if you're curious. If you really want to get confused. But it just hit me at a certain period of time in which I was just a sponge absorbing all kinds of things. And it seemed to be this bizarre thing out of complete left field. Like, where did this come from? Who is this person who made this? And then imagine, and no one had heard of him. I remember going to film school. No one had heard of this guy. No one's seen this movie. No one's like, who is this? And then 3 years later, he wins Cannes and everyone knows his name. I was like, I told you.
I knew then. Right.
I had a feeling about this guy.
It's extraordinary. It took me a minute to realize that it's principally a piano movie. First of all, like, I am mad for piano movies, and the fact that we get this guy who's a tough in the weird sort of underground real estate market and ends up being somebody who is, you know, an exemplary piano performer, that he's trying to find that part of himself. That it's one of the most interesting pieces is watching Emily the Criminal and this movie back to back, that they're both We Contain Multitudes movies, right? There's that human experience of, I think I know who I am, and I'm not yet sure what I'm capable of, but let's explore that. And this, you know, Beat That My Heart Skipped is extraordinary because he is in this role of trying to figure out, like, I think I know who I am. I'm good at this part of myself, but this thing I gave up as a kid, piano performance, is a thing I think I'm capable of being too. And that's so hard for audiences to kind of hold in one place. Same thing with Emily, right? Like this whole idea that she is this person who's just trying to pay her bills and trying to get her stuff done, and is capable of this whole different side of her life that makes both of these movies, I think, really human expansionist properties that I got an enormous amount of joy watching back to back. Like, they were just perfect.
Yeah, I hope so. I remember we kept, when we were making Emily, we kept saying, like, we're making an Audiard movie, but in LA. Like, if Jacques Audiard were like in his 30s and living in Los Angeles, like, what kind of movie would you make? Probably something that looks like this, that has a lot of like Armenian people in it, and like a lot of like angry driving and stuff. Like, I don't know. Like,
there's an actual sequence. I gotta ask if it was intentional, because there's an actual shot where, you know, Emily says, you know, yeah, I could go easy. I could have a glass of wine, and like then she's partying, and they end up in a stall in the bathroom with this high overhead askew shot, and that shot is also in The Beat That My Heart Skipped. Did you know it? Are we homaging here? Because it's so beautiful.
Oh yeah. There's so much. There's so many things I directly ripped off from that movie. There's so many things. There was an entire sequence that was directly a ripoff, and we cut it out because it just didn't work. But that part in Beat That My Heart Skip where he goes to his dad's house and he's trying to get his dad to give him an answer about something, and the dad's avoiding it, and he just starts destroying the apartment. He just like flips the coffee table over, so his dad's like, okay. It's the most French thing that's ever happened. We had that scene. There's a scene where Emily's trying to get an answer out of Youssef, who's her romantic interest, and he's refusing to tell her, and she starts like wrecking his apartment. And I learned that, you know, there's some things you can only do if you're Jacques Audiard, and if you're me, it just doesn't work. But I had fun completely ripping off a movie that most people have not seen and then taking the credit for it. it's a great position in the end.
But also totally worth it. Like it doesn't feel like ripping off. It feels like, oh my God, this is celebrating one of the greats that nobody's heard.
Well, to be fair, The Beat That My Heart Skipped is itself a remake.
Yeah.
Of an American movie called Fingers from 1977, directed by James Toback. It's actually James Toback's debut movie with Harvey Keitel.
Okay, so I haven't seen Fingers. Andy, have you seen Fingers?
I looked for it, and it also is very hard to find, harder to find than The Beat That My Heart Skipped. I couldn't even find it on YouTube. I did watch the trailer so that I had a little bit of a sense of it, but it's a tricky one to track down. And I did read some reviews that kind of compared this to that film. And I mean, it seemed to think that people felt that this film, while it was remaking it, was still respectful of what Toback had done in that version. I don't know. Have you seen it? Have you been able to track it down? Yeah.
Yeah, I have. I mean, I would say that Audiard
was probably still on Blockbuster at that time.
I'm right. Exactly. Yeah. I walked down to Radio Shack and got a copy. I'd say Audiard's is a much better movie, but that's a movie made by a guy who at that point was in his 50s and already made like 10 movies. Whereas like Fingers is James Toback's first movie as a kid. So
right.
It's interesting. It's interesting to look at it through the lens of like, how were we Americans perceived by the French and at that time? Like American movies, like those kind of like gritty 70s cop movies of like Mean Streets and French Connection were so popular in that part of the world. And it affected an entire generation. And Audiard would have been a young man at that point. And then, 30 years later, he goes and makes something that is just directly out of his own childhood and spits it out. And now we as Americans see it. It's this bizarre dialogue that's been going back and forth between the two countries forever. And it's
right.
Fascinating to watch. And then they make my movie, which is a complete knockoff. And
let's say homage.
And now they're trying to remake Emily the Criminal in France right now.
Are they really?
Like as we speak. Well, it's like a whole thing.
That's wild.
I know. I want to be like,
just insert yourself into the conversation. That's fantastic.
See if you can get it in Audiard's hands.
Just happy to be here. Yeah, right. You'd be like, what is this?
This film, there's an element of this film that we've kind of touched on a little bit, but it was such a fascinating part of the story for me. It starts off with this conversation between Tom and his friend, as his friend is kind of relaying this relationship that he is, this evolving relationship he's been having with his father as his father is aging, and now he's finding that he is the one who has to be the caregiver and taking care of his father. And that's a part of this film. We certainly see that with Tom as he is trying to figure out, I don't know, my sense of it was that it was kind of maybe a family business. Maybe his dad had also been in kind of these real estate sorts of these shady real estate, kind of the sleazy sort of the side of real estate where you're dealing with a lot of like the criminal underground sort of people, and planting rats in places where you need to get tenants out, like all the sorts of dirty dealings that they're doing.
Outstanding strategy.
Yeah, right.
It seems to work.
And his dad seems to have been in that, but is at a point in his life where he also can't really do it anymore, and is asking Tom several times over the course of the film, "Can you take care of this for me? This guy's not paying." And that's a big part of the story, is using or looking at your parents as, I don't know, I guess you could say like inspiration or just a place to start when you're trying to figure your life out, because that's where he ends up in his life. And then, of course, we learn, as we've been talking about, like his mother had died, I think, like 8 years prior, and she had been a great pianist, concert pianist, and he had given up piano at that point. But now, after having seen her manager, it's kind of like reignited that passion, and now he's trying to that's kind of a catalyst for him to refigure himself out. And so it's a fascinating film because it's this journey about trying to figure out who you are and how you're going to define yourself. Am I going to model myself after my dad, or do I want to model myself after my mother in this particular case? But it's also like these relationships with your parents, and I don't know, it's a fascinating exploration. I guess I'm just curious, like, in the scope of that sort of relationship, when you're dealing with trying to figure yourself out, I mean, what are you pulling from that when you're watching this? Because I think there's a lot to say about those points.
I think one of the things that I love, one of the things I've taken away the most from the movies of Jacques Audiard, all of them, is that he understands what story he's telling on like an atomic level. In a world where no one really knows what they're doing, I'd say he's one of the rare people who, like, I think he might actually know what he's doing. There are like 4 people, and he's one of them. He just knows what story he's telling, and he understands what those themes are. And you watch this movie for the first time, and it just seems like this almost documentary level spontaneous thing. And then you keep thinking about it, and you're like, why am I still thinking about that? And you go watch it again, and you're like, holy shit, like he buried this thematic thing here so deeply, and yet he knows exactly where it lies on the surface. The Beat That My Heart Skipped is a thriller, right? About this guy who has to like perform crimes for his dad, and then is torn because he also kind of wants to do this other thing, but there's stakes either way. His dad's like, go collect money from me, or they're going to figure out a way to take care of this Russian guy, or he's going to kill me, you know? And he's got to go do that and take care of this Russian guy. And then there's the piano. Oh, you have a piano recital. Oh, you got to like practice for that. It's like this thriller about like the stressful agendas. And yet when you watch it multiple times, it's just about who are you going to be like, your mom or your dad? That's it. And the decision to make his mom not present, she's deceased and is only a voice that we hear on a tape that he plays, gives her this kind of spectral presence over the movie. A very cinematic and very unique kind of way. It's just awesome. And just great, like the level of like understanding how to make those themes material and cinematic. It just, like, here, let me give you an example. So his dad represents one thing, right? His dad represents a life of being transgressive and kind of crime. I think his mom represents a life of art and genuinely kind of trying to express herself. And our central character is torn because he likes both of those lives very much and doesn't know which one he wants. His dad's world, his dad's life is always yellow. So in the movie, if you watch, his dad only wears yellow. Like he's got a yellow jacket, he's got a yellow blazer, he hangs out in a restaurant that, sure enough, the walls are yellow. It's always yellow. Even his apartment, like, it's kind of piss yellow. And there's this, like, everything that has to do with his dad and what his dad represents is generally that color in the film. Now, there's this moment where a central character is driving along and he sees his old piano teacher on the side of the road. He just happens to pass this guy. He used to give him piano lessons. And he tries to pull over. He says, oh, I want to talk to that guy. That guy represents some other desire that our central character has that perhaps he also wants to pursue at the behest of crime. And he tries to pull over, and you know what happens? There's this guy on a bicycle who rides past, and like he almost hits him, and the guy like pounds the hood and is like, ah! And the dude's wearing a fucking yellow jumpsuit.
Interesting.
Crazy. Yeah.
And you watch it once and you just think, oh, there's a and then you watch it again, you're like, this is the level that Audiard's working at. Like every little thing is like that.
But isn't even the other piano teacher, right? Isn't he wearing a blazer over like a mustard yellow sweater?
Is he really?
I think he is, and
that's my entire hypothesis.
But it doesn't. I don't think it does. I think it actually cements it, because here he is. Like, this is the alternative father figure, right? This is another guy who can give him opportunity, and I think it makes total sense.
He's only gotten better at it. You know, if you look at like a Prophet, it's even deeper in that direction.
Well, I'm curious where you stand at the end, because like great movies that trust the audience, I think there is a character question that's open at the end of the movie. That what happens principally on the surface is he's going to, we see him drop off his former piano teacher, the Chinese woman, and she goes in and he parks the car and comes back and notices that there is somebody else there. The Russian is there, and he goes about exerting violence on the Russian that originally murdered his dad. Then we get an incredible sequence, just performatively, maybe one of the best I've ever seen, of an actor displaying what it's like to finish a fight. The adrenal rush, the shaking over the sink, like it's just extraordinary. And then he goes in and takes a seat and watches now that he has become sort of the manager, like he's found his place. Is there ever a question about whether one of these lives is resolved? Like, to me, I watch this guy and I think, okay, he's found who he is in both parts. He realizes his true part as a musician, but he also is still capable of the more violent pieces of his nature. Do we have any sense that he's learned anything? What has he moved on to?
That ending is so effective and correct to me, but articulating it is sort of a task because there's so much going on. It's not a conclusion where our central character gets what he or she wants or doesn't get it and learns something in the process. It's not that kind of ending.
Right.
It's an ending where our central character learns who he is and what his challenges probably for the rest of his life are going to be. That's the end of the movie. It's a coming of age movie that is dressed up as a thriller. Like you kind of feel like you're watching a thriller with like Russian gangsters in it while you're watching it. And then it's over and you're like, I think that was a coming of age movie in his late 20s. Yeah, for me, it's like we go through this whole movie and he kind of learns that he doesn't need to be like his father, that he can do something else. And then he goes and commits to doing that something else. And then, spoiler alert, a couple years later, he sees the guy who killed his dad. And what is he going to do now? And he lashes out and the whole thing happens. Then he goes back to the concert and it just feels like this is this big thesis that yes, this guy can have a peaceful life and a normal life and he does not have to be like his father, but his father's always going to be there, threatening will pull him in this volatile direction. That like, it's not like that we get over things. It's that we learn to live with ourselves.
That as a coda, I think everything that we see is that self-actualization for our character doesn't always have to be pretty. Like it doesn't always have to be tied up nicely. He's learned who he is and he's still able to be at home in the ugliest parts of himself.
To me, it's an incredibly optimistic ending. For sure. I find a lot of happy endings to be kind of condescending or patronizing because they're just untrue and they're asking us to believe something that we know is untrue. And that's very sad to me. Ironically, most happy endings to me, I just feel kind of sad because I kind of go, yeah, but that's not true. Whereas this is this ending that's like, it just levels with you. It's like, you are always going to be yourself, but you'll probably get better at being yourself as time goes on, but you're always going to be yourself.
The happiness is that you understand it.
That you understand it. You're going to be this guy who beats another man to an inch of his life and then gets up like nothing happened and goes to a piano recital to support his girlfriend and sits there in the audience listening to the fucking music. Like it's
covered in blood.
Covered in blood. Oh my God. That ending. It also begs the question of like, what does it mean to be cinematic? Like, what does that mean? That ending, the kind of meaning of it that we're chipping away at. It could have been stated in so many ways, but the way it works in this movie is silently. There's no dialogue for the last 10 minutes. I mean, there's nothing said. It's all done physically and with movement and with music and with editing. I mean, it's off the rails.
And so much of it was with that look that his wife, I'm assuming, gives him from the stage. She just glances at him real quick in the middle of her recital, and he just kind of gives her a quick smile. That said so much to me about where they were and where he was with himself at that particular point in time. He seems content and happy with his life where it is right now. He's with her. He may not be a concert pianist, but he's doing something different and he's doing something in that creative space. And I think there's a certain sense of joy that he has with that. And I mean, even if that dark side is still there. And I think that was an interesting element too. Like he doesn't go through with it. And like, would he have been able to go through with it 2 years earlier had he run into the Russian at that particular point in time? We never actually see him kill anybody. We see him do some pretty terrible things, but would he have been in a state where he would have been able to kill the guy? Or is that just inherently part of who he is? And that was the moment that he finally had to realize it, that like, I'm not the sort of person who can actually go through it, this sort of thing.
Because we get older, we accrue more people generally.
Yeah.
Like you get older and you have a significant other now. You have that person's, whoever's in their orbit, their friends and family, and then perhaps children, and perhaps, it's like you kind of just gain people. And that moment at the end where he's looking at his now significant other on stage, there's this thing that always crackled for me that the stakes are higher for him now. He has someone else to help and to support and to love, and he can't afford to go back and be like his former self, nonetheless be as bad as his dad. because that would negatively affect this other person. And the fact that that's all achieved in this one fleeting moment that might last like 5 seconds in the movie. It's just, this is what I mean by like Audiard is the fucking best. Like he is able to get these deep thematic things so cinematically and so quickly. It's so impressive. While other movies are so much more labored and they do it with dialogue and people talking and all this shit, it's like Audiard just does it like bang, there it is. You know?
Well, even to the point where he sets up 2 potential love interests in the film. We never fully get a sense that the piano teacher could be a love interest, although it kind of felt like maybe there was a possibility there. But we certainly have the other love interest who is tied into the world of his father, right? And so even in romance, he potentially has that balance. And it was great to see that even if he didn't succeed at his chance to have that recital and perform well, he still ends up leaning in that direction with time.
There's this dramatic question or idea, really, the difference between a problem and a dilemma. There's this dramatic theorist from the late 19th century, I think, named Lejos Egri. He wrote a book called On Dramatic Writing. That's like the only book you need to read for screenwriting. Actually, I take that back. It's just one of the best. It's great. And he wrote it before there were movies. Movies didn't exist at the time he wrote this book. One of the things he talks about is the difference between a problem and a dilemma, which the way he describes it is a problem is when your central character really wants something and is having a hard time getting it. Okay, simple enough. A dilemma is when your central character is trying to decide between 2 or more equally appealing things under a time pressure. Just that alone is like, it blows my mind. I'm like, wow, this dude really knew what he was talking about in 1846. Like, this movie, for instance, like Die Hard is about a guy with a problem, right? Like, they kidnapped my wife. I got to get back my wife, you know? Yeah, I'm going to kill a lot of people to get back my wife. Whereas, like, imagine a version of Die Hard where he's like, do I want to save my wife? And maybe I do.
Right.
That's the difference. And where something like The Godfather, there's a guy who does not know. Do I want to go clean and just live with my wife? Or do I want to be like my dad? Which responsibility is more prescient? Which is more important? And to me, it's movies with dilemmas that seem to last the longest, that we get the most mileage out of, you know? If Hamlet showed up to his family's castle at the beginning of Hamlet and walked up to the front gate, and the guard's like, yo, dude, you should probably go. Your uncle straight murked your dad and married your mom. These things are different since you've been gone. And if Hamlet was like, what? I'm going to kill him right now. Hamlet would suck. We wouldn't be talking about it. It would just be like an action play, you know? But instead, he's thrown into this dilemma. Like, oh man, what should I do? Like, this is my home. I want to live here. Should I just put up with this? Or can I not deal with this? You know? And then he starts dating this girl, and she's like, why don't you just chill out when you just be together? Who cares who's in charge, you know? And then he's got the ghost of his dad showing up in the middle of the night. Yo, avenge me. And he's like, Jesus Christ, okay. But I'm dating this girl, and she says, let's just hang out. And he's like, fuck that girl. Like, it's incredible mileage you get out of dilemma.
Are you working on this script right now?
Yeah. By the way, this is all...
Yeah.
This is the stupidest rendition of Hamlet that's happened ever. But the point that I'm making is, like, this movie, along with all of Audiard's movies, they're always about people who are torn between 2 things. And he continues to dramatize it up until the last morsel of the movie. And then it just like runs out of time and it goes into the credits, and that dilemma is still going in your mind. You're still there. And it never leaves you. It's just so impactful.
Well, this is, I think, where we go when we talk about like directors trusting the audience, that he doesn't really care if we are resolved at the end of the movie, if we understand what's going on, because it's okay to live in that liminal space of not knowing which way the director or the character has gone, and feel resolved just knowing that we got to spend a bit of time with this guy for 2 hours and however many movie, years. And we got to know that he learned a lesson. We don't get to necessarily know what it is. And Audiard doesn't give a shit.
No, there's a lot of faith in the audience, a lot of confidence in that storytelling. He has confidence that you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that's so, it's wonderful to talk to someone who assumes that you're intelligent. It's very, very unpleasant to speak to someone who assumes you must not be so intelligent. And this movie knows that. I remember when I was a little kid, I stayed up really late to watch The Road Warrior, Mad Max Road Warrior, which I'd never seen. It's probably like 9 or 10. and watched it. The movie's great for a 9 or 10-year-old. It checks all those boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the very end, there's this, like, if you remember, there's this shot of Mel Gibson alone on a highway. We're kind of pulling back and leaving him alone as the sun sets. There's no one around. And there's a voiceover, the narration. And the narration is like, oh, and the road warrior, that was the last we ever saw him. We don't know what happened to him. He's just a memory from, And then it just cuts to the credits. You're like, what? Like, what happened to him, And I remember as a kid, like, I couldn't sleep after watching that. And now I know, like, that is just expert level storytelling. What they do is they hand you the bag. They hand the audience the bag. And you're here. Now it's yours,
Yeah.
And that's just top level.
It's smart storytelling when you're allowing your character to be shades of gray. And I mean, you do get all these movies where your hero, I mean, they feel a little too white hat. They've got a problem that they've got to figure out, maybe even a dilemma, who knows? But it doesn't feel like they're necessarily like a real person, And I think there's plenty of movies that way. And this film, I mean, we have this guy who he does good things, he does bad things, he throws fits when he's talking to people, like he has it out with his dad's new girlfriend, and then his dad afterward. Like, there are things that he's doing that you're like, okay, he can be not necessarily a great guy, but I'm still incredibly compelled by him as the protagonist of this film. And I want to understand his journey because I feel connected to him. And I too feel those pulls in different directions. And how do I choose? And I think that's such smart storytelling. And the part of the filmmakers is giving us a sense of a character who has those sides.
There's this book that came out a number of years ago, a screenwriting book called Save the Cat that you may have heard of.
Yeah,
it's probably the most notorious screenwriting book, and it's called Save the Cat because its primary lesson is that you should have your central character do something really redeeming at the beginning of the movie, like, I don't know, saving the cat, and that this is an insurance policy to make sure that the audience is engaged and that they quote unquote like the central character. I can't fault that person for having written that. I mean, there's certainly a lot of people who do love movies that do that, and like, yeah, I get it. But for me, I kind of go, I think it's too simple. I don't think you're actually getting the heart of what an audience needs. They don't need to like the person. They just need to believe that the person's a real person. That's it. The minute you start believing that this is a full human, you're going to be engaged. You might not necessarily want to hang out with that person in real life, but you'll find yourself engaged because you're convinced that they're real. Whereas if someone does something really redeeming or nice or cool or whatever, but you never believe that they're a real person, I think that movie can only compel you so much. And this one, Beat to My Heart's Good. This guy is such a real dude. Like, he just does stuff where you're like, I can't believe that happened in a movie. I can't believe they just let the central character do, like, he meets his dad in a bar, and his dad's like, you should meet my new girlfriend. She's going to show up in a minute. And then she shows up, and his dad gets up to use the restroom, and is left alone with his dad's new girlfriend and just says the meanest stuff. Yeah. This is one of the craziest scenes. He's just like, oh, you're a model? You're ugly. I can't believe they gave you a job. Like, straight up. And she's very out. It's just like, what's your problem? And he's like, what's your problem? And then his dad comes back. You're like, what was that? And of course, we know what that's about. It's that he doesn't like seeing his dad with anyone else other than his mom that's no longer around. But like, the fact that it played out that way, and yet you find yourself completely believing it. You're like, there's nothing about that interaction that seems inconsistent with this character. Like, I believe that this is a real guy. That's the best.
Even his assertions of violence, like the sequence that I can't get out of my head. And there's a lot of crazy. I mean, there's fights and stuff that happen. But when Dad essentially lures him on the premise of the false premise of having a social engagement at a coffee shop, and actually says, "Well, the guy that I need you to mess up is across the street." Are you kidding me, Dad?
That's true right now.
And he goes in and kind of comes in the back door after Dad kind of gets it handed to him, is not able to do what he needs to do, and hits the owner of the business in the face with a cast iron pan. Like, it is totally unbelievable. And yet I am 100% in that moment, because that movie guy would do that thing, because it is so wrapped up in the complexities of the relationship with his father that he has not come to fully understand and communicate yet. It's amazing.
This is the thematic thing. Like there's so many movies that will just have a sequence like that because it's a set piece and because it's the second act and things like that are supposed to happen. Whereas this, like, it is so thematically on brand. Also speaks to like the level of, this is another thing I love about this director is his economy of storytelling. Something that I really had to learn when writing screenplays. Like, he sets everything up. All right. The central character, he's a criminal. He's kind of working for his dad, doing what his dad wants him to do. That's really hard, but he has a good time doing it most of the time. And then he remembers that he used to play music and kind of starts getting back into music, but it's at odds with the whole criminal lifestyle he has. And then his dad's like, come meet me at a coffee. He goes and meets his dad at his coffee shop, right? And this is 25 minutes of the movie. So we're into like first act break territory. And his dad's like, what have you been doing? And the kid's like, nothing. Hey, didn't I play piano as a kid? And his dad's like, who cares? And his dad's like, I need you to do something for me. And we're expecting like, oh, this is going to be another criminal job. Maybe it'll be next week or something. The dad's like, I need you to go get money. And the kid's like, I don't want to talk to you. And the dad's like, it's right across the street right now. You got to do it. This isn't leaving 10 minutes. Just that level of like, he knows exactly when to ramp things up and how to do it immediately in a movie. And then if you remember, our central character still refuses. He's like, no. And the dad's like, you're going to make me do it? Fine. And then the dad goes over there and we see through the windows, the dad get roughed up by this guy and thrown on the sidewalk, and he kind of sadly gets the coat up. And by now our central character's like, okay, I guess I'll go. Like he just like, these guys are they're just such incredible filmmakers. Everything is dramatized as far as it can go every single time. A lazier writer would have the central character just get up and go over there. But no, these people know you've got to put resistance in front of your central character at all times and kind of dramatize out every single thing. I just go on and on and on. And then he goes over there and he cuts his hand, if you remember, during this interaction. Oops. There you go. He cuts his hand. He can't play piano because it's wrapped in bandages. Thematically putting it's just like on and on and on and on and on. Like,
right.
It is just this savant level of understanding of narrative. Just kills.
What do you think of the title? It's not fingers or whatever it would translate to in French. It's very different and a little more perhaps music focused. What do you think?
The beat that my heart skipped, it's kind of a jacked up title. I think it translates probably really poorly from whatever it is in French. That will be my guess. I remember seeing it on the shelf at Blockbuster and being like, that clearly does not sound like that in French. You would never title a movie that. I just can't imagine this was made for American audiences or English-speaking audiences. It is so deep. It's so French. That's kind of one of its charms. You feel like you're seeing something that wasn't made for you, you know?
And that's, I think, true with many foreign films. You know, you're seeing the translated version or whatever they think makes sense. And I think that's what's interesting, because it ends up sounding not quite phrased how we would put it, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's something fascinating about the title that also draws me in, because I don't know if I fully understand it, but it's such an interesting phrase. The beat that my heart skipped.
Yeah.
You know?
It's weird. It's totally oblique and kind of makes you, I guess the effective thing it does is that it makes you realize the movie is about something deeper and bigger than perhaps you'd think on the surface. It's not called like Once Upon a Time in Paris or something. Like it's that title is so vague, and so like it kind of lets you know this movie is up to something.
Yeah.
It's bigger than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
Any other performances stand out for you as ones that really shine?
Oh man, all of them. I mean, talk about a casting, just murderer's row of incredible French actors in this movie. I mean, Romain Duris could have crossed over to the States or whatever, never did it. Stayed in France. You've got Ari Attica as his love interest, who's an amazing. She's actually Moroccan, which is something that's completely lost, I think, upon American audiences. That woman is foreign, and I think that changes. Well, we don't get it because we just hear French and think she's French. Niels Arestrup, I don't know how to say his name. Arestrup, the guy who plays his dad. This great French actor who's been around since the 70s.
Worked a bunch with Audiard too, I think, wasn't he, in Prophet?
Yeah, big TV actor in France in the 80s and 90s. And this was kind of the primer for his role in A Prophet, which is what he's mostly known for. I think he won Best Actor at Cannes for that. And then he went on to star War Horse, Steven Spielberg.
Right.
Spielberg saw, and I was like, who's this guy? So it's fun to look at this movie at all these names that kind of became better known after the movies wrapped up. And then, you know whose first movie this is? Melanie Laurent.
Oh.
Is the girl. There's like this, she's in it for like 2 seconds. There's a very brief scene where he's supposed to go do some reconnaissance and he gets distracted by this beautiful girl and like flirts with her, and it kind of comes back to and the decision to flirt instead of do the work comes back to haunt him later. And that was Melanie Laurent. It was very young. And this was her first movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
So young, I didn't even recognize her. That's amazing. Yeah.
Well, it was kind of the same with Linh Dan Pham, who played Mao Lin. And she looked so familiar. I looked her up on IMDb, and I didn't realize I've seen all of her top 4 for sure. Mr. Nobody, Ninja Assassin, and Indochine, besides the Beat That My Heart Skipped.
Yeah.
Like, you talk about a murderer's row of cast. Like, this is one of those movies that they're full of faces. Full of faces.
Everybody's great. Full of faces. Amazing faces. And so lived in feeling and so not standard. Like every single face is so specific. Even like Romain Duris is like, who, like, I remember seeing him and be like, this guy's a movie star? Like, he is such an so odd and yet so compelling.
Sort of a Jeff Gold. You can imagine Jeff Goldblum.
Really young Jeff Goldblum.
Young Jeff Goldblum, or just about that.
Like a younger Christian Bale, kind of. There's something really edgy and really
edgy,
scary about him. Like, you're a little scared of him. You don't quite know what he's going to do.
Yeah, right.
Before we made Emily the Criminal, I tracked down a DVD of Beat That My Heart Skipped and gave it to Aubrey. And I was like, this is pretty much who you're playing. You're going to be your version of this guy. This kind of sweaty, nervous, you're always moving, you're kind of ticky, and you always seem to be dissatisfied with everything that's going on. And I remember her watching it and coming back, and she was like, why had I never seen this before or heard of this? And I was like, exactly. Why has the world never heard of this?
I know. It's so frustrating. It's such a frustrating thing. And I mean, I don't know. Audiard's done, I think, just the one American film, the Sisters Brothers, I think he did, or the English language film.
Weirdest choice, strangest choice to make that movie.
Yeah, and then I know he's got a new film that I think it just played at Cannes.
It's called Amelia Pearl. Selena, yeah. He just made it with Selena Gomez.
Yeah,
which is
the guy's 72 years old or something, and he's just made a movie with Selena Gomez,
and just made like the hippest movie. It's like a musical.
Well, and the fact that is like you look at you watch the trailer of that movie, and you look at the press shots, and it's like that is a movie that is so full of culturally resonant color that this movie does not have, right? This is a movie where you talk about the intentional use of color, but it's all shot in kind of the drab. And it feels like a totally different guy at a totally different, clearly a totally different person at a totally different time of his life. And still, I'm as compelled to see this movie as I am this one.
It's one of these people who, like, he does it a little different every time. You can always tell it's him. You have like Steven Soderbergh will make a movie, and then he'll make another movie like 10 minutes later, and it's completely different. And you're like, how is that?
Then he quits the business, and he'll make 2 more.
Mm-hmm. And then he writes a book, and he tries to sell some T-shirts. That doesn't work. And then he goes back to making movies.
Andy did buy all of his T-shirts, though.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I have a few, yeah.
And like, but it's similar in the sense that there's this thing about it. You always kind of know it's him. How his movies never waste time. They don't have establishing shots, whatever it is. And like Audiard is that same vibe. Like you can always tell he's in there somewhere. Like there's something about his not giving a flying shit about the audience and if they're okay with things that is consistent throughout his whole career.
Awesome.
Wow. Well, I mean, it's a fantastic film. I'm so glad that you recommended it, that you brought it to our attention so that we could talk about it today on this show. John, thank you again so much for joining us again after all this time.
Thank you, guys. I feel kind of bad talking about a movie that listeners may have a hard time finding. So sorry about that.
We'll put the YouTube link in it for sure.
Yeah, there's a YouTube. It's on YouTube, and it has some issues in it. It does have some subtitles now, but the subtitles do start getting slower. But at least you can watch it. At least you can see it, and it's definitely something that's worth checking out.
Can you not get it on like Amazon? Is it not on like Prime or anything like that?
You can buy a copy of like the Blu-ray or the DVD still if you can track it down. They'll pop out, but otherwise it's not streaming anywhere. But it is on YouTube, so people definitely should check it out because it's a fantastic film. So thank you so much for bringing it to our attention.
This was fun. Thank you, guys. This was a true total pleasure.
Do you have any place online that you send people to follow you, or do you try to avoid socials?
Not super active on that stuff. I have an Instagram. I really only have it because the PR team on my previous movie kind of put their foot down at a certain point. So I've got like 5 pictures of like our press thing. That's it. But I do use it all the time. message people and track other stuff. So it's just John Patton Ford.
Fantastic.
And if people have questions or anything, hit me up.
We'll put it in the show notes. John, again, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it and are thrilled to have caught up with you after all this time.
Well, and I think at this rate, we'll see you in 2034.
Oh my gosh.
I know, it felt weird to say. It was really weird to say.
I'm gonna go now. Not sure I needed to hear that today. Thank you, guys. This was such a pleasure and so nice to talk about something that I love so much that I never really get to discuss in a public forum like this. So thanks.
Well, we appreciate it. And for everyone else out there, we hope you like the show and certainly hope you like the movie like we do here at Movies We Like. Movies We Like is a part of the True Story FM Entertainment Podcast Network and the Next Reel family of film podcasts. The music is Chomp Clap by Out of Flux. Find the show at truestory.fm and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Letterboxd at The Next Reel. Learn about becoming a member at thenextreel.com/membership. And if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, we always appreciate it if you drop one in there for us. See you next time. Hey, Pete, have you ever been fascinated by the allure of secret societies throughout history?
Are you kidding me right now, Andy? I live for this stuff. From the Freemasons to the Illuminati, I am obsessed with these clandestine groups. The Rosicrucians and their ancient wisdom, the Skull and Bones Society at Yale with its powerful alumni network. I'm drawn to them. There's something about how they offer this exclusive access to hidden knowledge. They totally capture my imagination. It's like they give this sense of belonging to something greater than oneself.
Wow, sounds like you're looking for one yourself.
Do you even need to ask? Where do I sign? How much blood do I have to give? Are there any required tattoos or brands involved? Is it my first or second born that they need?
Well, what if I told you that there's a secret society for film lovers right here at the Next Reel family of film podcasts, all proud members of the True Story FM network, and you don't have to give any blood or either of your kids?
You've got my attention, Andy. What can you tell me about this cinematic brotherhood?
When you become a member of the Next Reel family, you gain access to a treasure trove of exclusive content, early episode releases, and a community of passionate film enthusiasts who share your love for movies. It's like being initiated into a secret order where you're privy to the inner workings of our shows, including the Next Reel, the Film Board, Movies We Like, Sitting in the Dark, and CinemaScope.
But Andy, as a member, will I unlock a world of bonus content from extended conversations and behind-the-scenes insights to exclusive pre-show and post-show discussions that expand the conversations about the films we love?
Why, yes, the true power of this secret society lies in its community. As a member, you'll join an exclusive group within our Discord community where you can engage in clandestine conversations with other passionate film fans in our members-only channels.
But what about live recordings, Andy? The sacred rituals of any good cinematic order. Will these episodes be scheduled in advance so that members like me will know when to gather around the virtual pyre in real time via YouTube?
Ah, yes. Perhaps the greatest secret of all is that by becoming a member, you're not just investing in your own entertainment, you're also supporting the tireless work of our independent creators and helping to keep the magic of cinema alive and well. So if you're ready to join this elite group of film lovers and unlock the secrets of cinema, head over to truestory.fm/join. For just $5 a month or $55 a year, you will gain access to a world of exclusive content, engaging discussions, and a community that shares your passion for movies. Head to truestory.fm/join to sign up.
Andy, I can't wait for you to welcome me into the inner circle of the Next Reel family of film podcasts. I'll see you in the secret chambers. Now, when do I get my ring?
Well, we don't actually offer rings with your membership.
Tattoos or brands? When can I do that?
No tattoos.
Secret handshakes?
Tell you what, you and I can come up with our own secret handshake, okay?
No, I mean, at the very least. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way.